Okay, so we are going to start today with going over, since we're kind of a day behind because we took a day kind of off, we are going to start with reviewing the vocabulary words that we talked about in the beginning of the week. And then we'll move on from there. So, one of the words, or the first word, is stunned. I was stunned when the doctor said I needed shots. Stunned. Stunned means surprised, shocked, or amazed by something. I don't know if it'd be amazed in a good way if I was stunned for shots, but I would be shocked. Next word, dignified. Dignified means someone that is formal, calm, and proper. If somebody's very dignified, then they're very kind of uptight in a way. They're very strict, very well put together. Next word, regretted. Regretted. I regretted giving my dog a new stuffed animal. Or I regretted sending my dog outside in the rain. Because what do dogs do in the rain? Go in the puddles. And they bring mud around the house.
Twice this happened with my dog. He ran around in the field with muddy water.
Yep, that's exactly what dogs do.
Another time he ate a
Yeah. All right, next one. Hilarious. If something is hilarious, it's very, very funny. The movie was so hilarious, I almost peed my pants. Hilarious. I mean, you're not surprised, are you? I mean, I was just making up a sentence, but not from my own personal experience. But, like, I mean, that's just a fun sentence. All right, next word, observant. If somebody is observant, they're always looking. They can pick up on things. Like, I can pick up when Jody's not paying attention to what I'm doing because his hands are in his desk like this. I'm very observant. I see things or notice more details than other people. That's just a teacher's, that's a quality you have to be a teacher, is be very observant. Just say. Flattered. I was flattered when my boyfriend sent me roses. I don't have a boyfriend. You ain't gotta worry about that. But I was flattered. I was honored, or I felt special. I felt very special. I felt flattered. I'm so flattered. You know, like whenever they win beauty pageants, they're like. They're flattered. They're just surprised. Okay, you're welcome for this. It's Friday. I'm in a great mood today, okay?
Who isn't?
Mason's not in a great mood. All right, next word. Trampled. The poor shopper was trampled and hurt during Black Friday shopping to get the best deal on the TVs.
They all run.
They run, they trample. Next word, polish. Now this is not the polish like you would polish your shoes. This is like if somebody's polished, they're very skilled. They don't normally make mistakes. They're very skilled at something. I'm very polished at my art of teaching. I'm very polished. I'm very polished. My teaching is polished. It's perfect. It's perfection. I never make mistakes. Never make a single mistake. Right? Definitely. All right. Hey. Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, you cut it out. Come on in. I'm more polished on Thursdays and Fridays than I am on Monday and Tuesday.
That's tough.
So,
That's tough.
you're so funny, Kamani. You stop that right now. Stop it. Alright, so my turn to talk. So the other day we looked at ideas and support going off of facts and opinions. Hold on. When I find my anchor chart. So, remember, a fact is something that can be proven. Okay? I can say that I am 5'2" and I can prove that by measuring how tall I am.
You're 5'2".
I am. I can say that my hair is brown just by looking at my hair. That's a fact. That's something I can prove. An opinion is saying something like, I think summer is the best season of the year. Now, that's my opinion because other people may like winter better or spring better or fall better.
I like fall.
So, that's my opinion. If I said, my favorite sport or the best sport in the world is baseball, but that may not be somebody else's opinion. They may say that football is the best sport in the world. So that is my opinion. I cannot prove that is the best or not. Okay? So if you ever hear somebody say, I believe, I think, or the best, then that always, you got to think of opinion. Okay? When you're reading text or when you're reading a story, the author, if I read a story about surfing and they're telling me that, you know, you can catch some gnarly waves, it's the best sport, it's the best workout you could ever have, well, that's their opinion, because there's other workouts or other sports that could be more of a workout, more of a fun activity. It's just our opinion. The author is trying to persuade you or get you to like their thing better. All right, like on our personal narratives, when y'all talked about what your favorite thing to do in the snow was. Your favorite thing's may not be the same thing as somebody else's. That's your personal narrative. That's your own personal feeling. That's your opinion. Okay? All right, so we're going to do some close reading this morning. So we're going to turn to page 327 in our book, a reading book. 327, please. Why is it in page 327 in your reading book, please. Y'all should already have your reading and math book at your desk. I should not have to wait for you to go get it. That's part of the unpacking situation of your day. So we're on page 327. So we're going to reread paragraphs 17 and 18, looking for evidence to support the idea that the Fab Four were funny. Who are the Fab Four? The Beatles. George, Paul, Ringo, and John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Those are the Fab Four. So we're rereading paragraphs 17 and 18. So we're actually on page 326. So the Beatles were no longer playing in a small, seedy club. Hold on, let me ask you the question first. No, I won't ask you the question. Yeah, I'll ask you a question. Okay, so as I'm reading, think of this question. How do the authors support their idea that the Beatles were funny? Okay, so here we go. 17. The Beatles were no longer playing in small, seedy clubs. They were even invited to perform for a formal audience that includes the British royal family. How should they act? Could the Fab Four still be silly in front of royalty? Before Twist and Shout, their final song, John invited the main floor audience to clap along. Then he peered up at the dignified royal family in the box seats. And the rest of you, if you just rattle your jewelry, everyone giggled, even the Queen Mother. So, how do the authors support their idea that the Beatles were funny? Yeah, it talks about how they were silly, and then what was the saying that they said? No. That was a song they were singing. But, so it said, if we see where it says, it says, Twist and Shout, their final song, John invited the main floor, which is the people at the bottom, they're the ones that have the cheap seats, to clap along. Then he peered, hold on. My gum just came out of my mouth as I was talking. Into my mask. Thank the Lord for a mask. I'm so dignified. And polished. It told the floor audience to clap along. Then he peered up at the dignified royal family, the very proper royal family that was up in the balconies. You know, because the balconies are where the rich people, proper people that they have all the money. They don't have to be in the crowd with all smushed up in there. That's where they were sitting. It said, and the rest of you, if you just rattle your jewelry, so instead of them clapping, they would just rattle because they're too proper and polished to clap because they're royalty. So if you just rattle your jewelry, and then it said everyone giggled. So he was kind of saying a joke there. He wasn't kind of saying a joke. He was saying a joke. So that supports that they still had a funny nature. All right, page 329. We're going to reread page 23, paragraph 23 and 24 to find evidence to support the author's feelings about the Beatles. 23 and 24. Even when the massive audience in America made them nervous, the Beatles didn't show it. All the screaming of fans was music to their ears, a sign that everyone was having a good time. George said, "We like screams," so screamed louder and louder. They were now big stars riding around together in limousines. Yet the Beatles had as much silly fun as they had as boys in Liverpool. Said, how do the authors feel about the suddenly famous Beatles? Is this a fact or an opinion? How do the authors feel about the suddenly famous Beatles? Is this a fact or an opinion? How do the authors feel about the suddenly famous Beatles?
They were silly.
Okay.
It was the authors were saying they haven't changed since they were.
Right. Even though they have become super famous, they're still the funny, silly people that they were as young boys in Liverpool. Jody, go ahead and sit your head up, bud. So, is this a fact or an opinion? An opinion. Very good. How did the band deal with their sudden fame?
When they were nervous, they didn't show it.
They didn't show it because what were they doing?
They were nervous about it.
They were nervous, so what did they do to kind of mask that nervousness?
Tell them.
They cracked jokes. Somebody's really nervous, they probably crack jokes to help with the insecurity or the nervousness.
And it says they joked about everything.
Yes, they joked about everything. Making jokes about everything. All right, we're gonna look at text structure. Now remember, text structure and text features are two different things. Text features is what you see in the text, how the text is written, not how the text is formed. Then text structure is what they the structure of it. If you think of a house, how is it built? It's got to have a structure. So there are 4 different types of text structures. We have comparing and contrast, we have cause and effect, we have sequential order or in chronological order, and then we have problem solution. So let's go to page 325. All right, so we're going to start at paragraph 10 on 324, and we're going to analyze the text for its structure. So, everybody should be following along. A painful silence, George tried to lighten the mood. Well, for a start, I don't like your tie. The producer laughed, and he still had the Beatles sing their song 17 times in a row. It was midnight before he thought it sounded right. The lads had their first record, Love Me Do, a song Paul had written 4 years earlier when he was 16. Once the bouncy tune got on the radio, people started listening. Months later, the Beatles' second record, Please Please Me, hit #1 on the charts in England. The band began appearing on English TV, singing, joking, shaking their mop-top hair, and having a blast. The songs were fantastic, but the lads themselves were so cool, so funny, and so fab, short for fabulous, that reporters started calling them the Fab Four. The first Beatles fan club started with 35 members and grew to 40,000 within a year. Fans sent their heroes love letters, stuffed animals, and their favorite English candy, squishy jelly babies. So how is this part of the text organized? How is this part of the text organized?
It shows how they first got their record, then they got a lot of fans from it. And then it just shows that fans followed them everywhere, and they gave Beatlemania.
All right, so what text feature is it? What text feature is it describing? Is she describing? Anybody? Anybody? Nobody? Somebody? Let me put what the text features are. Okay. I will. here are text features. We have compare and contrast. We have cause and effect. We have sequencing. We have problem solution. So which text feature? Nope. What would the problem be, Ava? Wrong.
Sequence.
Yes, it is sequence. Now, Ava, what would the problem be? You wouldn't know. Okay. That's okay. So, it is sequencing or chronological order as it happened, events that happened in their life in order. It says, what clues do the authors include to show the text structure? What clues?
They tell what year it is.
Yeah, they tell the year, the month, the time. These are all clues of something that is in sequential order. It says, how does knowing the text structure help you to understand the author's purpose for writing? How does knowing the text structure help you to understand the author's purpose of writing?
To inform other people about the Beatles and the band.
Yeah, and how fabulous and funny they were at the period of time that they were a band. All right, let's go to page 326. All right, we're going to reread paragraphs 15 through 17. Have a good weekend. It says the fans wanted more, so John and Paul wrote songs as fast as they could, meeting over tea and cornflakes. As certain words popped up in hit after hit, they began to consider them lucky. Me, please, love, and especially you. When they wrote, she loves you, Paul's father begged them to change its yeah, yeah, yeah line to a more proper yes, yes, yes. But Paul laughed the idea off with a no, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah was soon heard around the world, and She Loves Me becomes the first Beatles record to sell millions of copies. The Beatles were no longer playing in small, seedy clubs. They were even invited to perform for a formal audience that included the British royal family. How should they act? Could the Fab Four still be silly in front of royalty? It says, how does these paragraphs show the passage of time? How do these paragraphs show the passage of time? Look at your text.
Oh, it mentions the royal family.
Yes, it mentions the royal family. So first they started out as what?
Just a small band that played in clubs.
Uh-huh. And then they
are performing in formal audiences, including the British royal family.
Yeah, including the royal family. So they went from being this small little house band of friends that just like to play music together to somebody that was so good that they were able to play for the royal family, for kings and queens. Now, very good. All right, we're going to, let me look at my next page, make sure I'm on track. All right, I'm on track. All right, so we are going to transition into some science. We've been talking about ecosystems. We've been talking about ecosystems and what they are. An ecosystem is a what? What is an ecosystem? Ava, what is an ecosystem?
It's like what?
Okay, a habitat or a place where
Animals live.
animals. Now, is it just living animals or is it living and non-living things? And living and non-living things. So, let me find my page where I wrote. Okay. Maybe not. Oh, here we go. All right, it says a community of organisms meaning a living or non-living thing, that interact with their environment. So, like water is a non-living resource. Now, living things live in the water, but water is actually not living. A rock is not living. This stone right here is not living. Now, a plant, it grows, it is a living organism. We, as humans, are a living organism. So, we are part of an ecosystem. So, if you think of it as the school, the ecosystem that we're in is Tommy's Road Elementary, but we're our own little group, as in my class, but we interact with other things in the school. When we go to PE, when we have music, when we have art, we're interacting with other things. And then we have the 3 types of, what's it called? Let me see if I remember what it's called. The different types of organisms that interact in a ecosystem are, we have the producers, which are the ones that create the food. They create the food by using the sun and water, so that's the plants. The plants are the producers. And then we have the consumers, are the ones that either eat the producer or eat the other consumers. So we are a consumer. If I eat lettuce, that's a plant. So I am a consumer. And then we have the decomposers, which are the bacteria and fungi that help break down break down things that were living that are now non-living, to help get the nutrients back into the soil, which then goes back to the plant. Because soil, dirt, is a non-living organism. So, let me go to my thing over here. All right. So, let's look at the before video discussion questions. So we said an ecosystem is a what?
Habitat for living and non-living.
A habitat for living and non-living things. It's where they interact. An ecosystem is a community of interacting organisms in their environment. Living things interact with each other and also with non-living things like soil, water, and air. So what does a plant or animal need in order to survive in a certain ecosystem? What does a plant need in order to survive in a certain ecosystem?
Food and water and sun.
Sun, water, food, shelter, all the specific needs of a plant or animal must be met if they're going to survive in an ecosystem. These needs include food, shelter, temperature, water, and air. That's why I remember in the South Pole or in Antarctica, you can't live there for a long period of time because of the temperature. And plants also need sunlight and the right soil conditions. So don't you sit up, baby. It says, what is found in a healthy ecosystem? Plants. All right, what else, Christopher?
Meat.
Okay, other animals? Water. In a healthy ecosystem, many different plants and animals live and interact together. A healthy ecosystem is balanced. So if I am a polar bear, would a polar bear have a would it be a healthy ecosystem for a polar bear to live in a rainforest? No, because is he going to be able to find what he needs to survive? No. A healthy ecosystem is balanced. So, like they said, if there becomes way too many squirrels in the world, then we're not going to have the acorns and the nuts that we need to use for other purposes. That's why there are animals that are bigger than the squirrels that eat the squirrels. So it's all a balance. If there's a penguin and there's no snow, is there a balance in that ecosystem? No, because okay, they can live on beaches too, but just in general. Yes. All right, but that's a different type. All right, it says what might happen if a new organism is introduced to an ecosystem? What might happen? Okay, it may throw off the balance. A new organism might throw off the balance of an ecosystem. This would cause change, such as some animals and plants in the ecosystem not being able to survive. So, like, if we cut down all these wooded areas, is that keeping a balance to the ecosystem? It could, yes, it could, because that helps us regrow new trees and stuff, but we're messing up the habitat for other animals. So like deer and stuff, they come out, if they don't have nowhere to go, or a bear has nowhere to hibernate, then that's throwing off the balance of the ecosystem. All right, so we're going to watch a video about ecosystems. Let me hide this, turn on.
Where are they? The upside down? What is it, Stranger Things? Would be offering?
Alex, no talking, please. Alex.
Daisy, what's wrong? Goldie got sick this morning. That's 5 sick goldfish in a month. Goldie! Swimmy Goldberg! The gold farm!
Golden, turn your own volume up. We've got it up and on.
5 goldfish in a month? What have you been feeding them?
Just fish food? Some ice cream, pizza. It's too much, isn't it?
I think that's too much for people.
It's okay, Izzy.
Alright,
We got
mute your
something for you.
microphone.
This is called an ecosphere. It's a completely sealed glass sphere. It's got water, air, shrimp, algae, and bacteria.
Wow, so these organisms have everything they need right there in the sphere.
And you don't even have to add food. So what do we call this?
Easy proof.
Or we call it an ecosystem. Let's dive in. I'm Dr. Jeff Binnicker, and today we're going to explore the science of ecosystems. We'll learn that an ecosystem is a community of interacting organisms and their environment. That organisms can only survive in an ecosystem when their specific needs are met. A healthy ecosystem has many different kinds of organisms. And newly introduced organisms can throw off the balance of the ecosystem. Welcome to Labracazam, where we make science make sense.
So tell us, Dr. Jeff, what exactly is an ecosystem?
An ecosystem is a community of interacting organisms and their environment.
Oh, so like me interacting with my couch and TV, eating seafood last night?
Not quite. An ecosystem describes an area where living things interact with each other and also with non-living things, like soil, water, and air. In an ecosystem, each organism has its own role to play. And it can be as small as your backyard or as big as the ocean. Let's look at our sealed ecosphere as an example. In our ecosphere, light energy helps the algae grow. The algae is then eaten by the shrimp. When the shrimp poop, tiny bacteria in the water feed on it.
Don't
The
get it up,
bacteria then
tramps
convert
it
that
up.
poop to nutrients that help the algae grow.
Wow, it's like a cycle.
Exactly. However, if the needs of the organisms aren't met, the balance of the ecosystem can be destroyed. For instance, if there was no light, the algae wouldn't grow. That means the shrimp would die since they wouldn't have any algae to eat. And if the shrimp stop pooping, the bacteria die too.
So everything in an ecosystem interacts and depends on each other for survival.
Labracazam. To better understand this, I think it's time we went on a field trip! Today we're at the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, California. They have many great examples of ecosystems here. Here we are on the first floor of the rainforest. We have here Dr. Natalie. She is a botanist. She's an expert at the science of plants.
How do plants help our ecosystem?
Plants are really important to our ecosystem. They are the food and the homes for all animals, like birds and butterflies and big animals as well.
How do plants interact with animals?
So plants provide homes for animals. They provide things like nests. They also provide food for animals. We eat plants, but we also have plants that provide food for things like bugs. If you look at these big leaves, bugs are going to eat the leaves. Flowers also provide nectar for birds and butterflies, and they also provide fruits for things like bats and birds as well.
What do you guys think would happen if all of these plants died?
Well, if there's no plants, the animals wouldn't have anything to eat. Why are rainforests important to the world?
That's a good question. It's only about 6% of the world is covered by rainforests, but they produce so much, and that's what we're trying to show here. And things like deforestation and logging really affect these rainforests. And when they produce so much things, like they produce about 40% of the oxygen that we as humans get. So we really need these rainforests to thrive.
So how do humans impact an ecosystem like the rainforest?
Things like bringing invasive species into a rainforest can really upset the balance that we have. So when we introduce those invasive species, those might actually go for animals that live there. They're going to upset that balance.
So what makes a healthy ecosystem?
We really need this balance. So we need all those different players, all those different parts to make it work.
So if there was a big change in the ecosystem, like it got much colder, that would really affect the entire system, right?
Absolutely. So these plants are really important to making these rainforests thrive. So if there's a big change in the climate, that's really going to affect this ecosystem.
Wow, we're underwater. Is this an ecosystem too?
Yeah, this is a freshwater ecosystem. So just like on land, all the different parts of this ecosystem are connected. So things like crabs and tiny shrimp are connected to the fish, and they're connected to the turtles, algae, also some plants as well.
And so the big fish would eat the little fish, and the little fish would eat the shrimp and crabs and things, and they need all this dead wood and places to hide, and so it's all interconnected.
Yeah, just like on land.
Wait. Let me guess. This is an ecosystem too.
Yeah, you're right. This is a saltwater ecosystem. So this is what happens under the ocean. Under the water, all the components are connected as well. So the clams and the sea urchins and the fish, they're all connected in an ecosystem.
So how do people affect the ecosystem?
People can impact the ecosystem in a good way and a bad way. So a good way is that when we fish, we don't overfish and take too many fish from the ocean. But on the other hand, we can do really bad things like use a lot of fertilizer on land, and that runs off into the oceans, causes an algal bloom which kills a lot of animals in the ocean.
Can you guys think of any examples of how the living things in this ecosystem, like the fish, interact with the non-living things, like the rocks?
Well, the fish could hide under the rocks for shelter.
Or hide under the sand to avoid predators.
Yes.
That's right. Just like on land, in the ocean, living things and non-living things are all interconnected.
Izzy, what happens if there's a dramatic change in the ecosystem?
Well, one of three things can happen. Either the plants and animals can survive and they live where they used to live. Another thing that can happen is that they can die, or the plants and animals can move to somewhere where it's more suitable for them to live.
Now, to see how the ecosystem can affect us and can be affected by us, let's go to some real-world science. To us, this looks like an average garden. But if you look closer, you'll see that so many living things depend on it for survival. Flowers produce nectar and pollen, which is the main diet for birds, bees, and other insects. In turn, those birds and insects transfer pollen between flowering plants, which means the plants can make seeds and reproduce. Trees that have rough bark with crevices and cracks can provide shelter for bugs and small lizards. At the same time, the limbs of the tree provide shelter for larger animals like birds or squirrels who they could survive by eating the bugs. Even this small puddle here can be an entire ecosystem all by itself, filled with living things like algae, worms, or insects. In every ecosystem, some organisms can survive well, some less well, and some can't survive at all. Now, let's cut back to Zoe.
Today, I'm going to show you how to create your very own ecosystem by building a terrarium. A terrarium is a closed environment of plants and animals that can illustrate how an ecosystem works. So, we want to create an ideal habitat that meets the needs of our chosen plants. Today, we're going to use plants and moss that require a lot of water. To start, we'll need a large glass jar with a lid, some mesh and scissors, rocks, activated carbon, which is used in charcoal for fish tank filters, a spray bottle filled with water, plants and moss already growing in soil, and some extra soil with a spoon. First, cover the bottom of your jar with a thin layer of rocks or gravel. About 1 inch of gravel should do it. Next, sprinkle some of the activated carbon throughout the rocks, which will help to filter the water. Now take your mesh screen and cut it into a circle so it fits the bottom of your jar. You might want to make it slightly bigger than the jar so it completely covers the rocks. Next, take some soil and cover the mesh. This allows room for the roots to grow. Finally, add your moss and plants to the soil. Water them generously with the spray bottle and close the lid. There you have it, your very own terrarium, an entirely self-sustaining ecosystem. It might look like plants are the only living things inside, but don't forget that the soil also has microorganisms like fungi and bacteria. As leaves from the plant fall off, they are broken down by the microorganisms to make nutrients for the plants to use again. If you have the right balance inside, it can last for years without opening, just like Izzy's ecosphere. Pay attention to how your plants grow and change in the terrarium over time. Try it yourself.
Thanks, Zoe. Now, let's review. Today, we learned that an ecosystem is a community of interacting organisms and their environment.
We also learned that organisms can only survive in ecosystems where their needs are met.
Healthy ecosystems have many different kinds of organisms.
And newly introduced organisms can throw off the balance of an ecosystem.
Way cooler to meet you guys. It's a lot of you, man.
Izzy, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm waiting on these shrimp to be jumbo shrimp. I got my sauce, my lemon, got my plate. Just gotta wait.
How are you gonna get in there?
Huh. Never really thought about that.
Join us next time on Labracazam. I'm Dr. Jeff.
I'm Izzy.
I'm Zoe.
I'm Bert.
Remember,
Always question, always wonder.
Alright, we're gonna do the post lesson. What, buddy? Alright, let's look at the after video question. It says, how big is an ecosystem? It can be any size. It can be big, small. It could be, it just arranges, it just depends on how big it is. You know, there's could be a lot of, it could be just the puddle in the ground right there. It says, how do the components of Dr. Jeff's ecosphere interact to each other to survive? Just mix it up. How does Dr. Jeff's ecosphere interact to help each other survive? How did that ball interact?
It had all like plant stuff that kind of plants, and then it had like shrimp. It had algae and shrimp. And
Right. So when the shrimp ate the plants, the shrimp pooped, it goes back into the soil. The soil has the poop has bacteria in it that goes back into the soil, which helps the plant grow some more. That's why when they say fertilizer actually has poop in it. That's how you get the best plants to grow, is by being fertilized. Alright, so in an enclosed ecosphere, the algae uses sunlight to grow. The algae is eaten by the shrimp. The shrimp poops and provides food for the bacteria, which converts the poop to nutrients that helps the algae to grow. It's a cycle. If you need to stand up so you can stay awake, you can. I just need everybody to stay awake. Alright, what are some components of a rainforest ecosystem and how do they interact? What's some components of an ecosystem, rainforest ecosystem, and how do they interact?
Here is Charles okay? I don't know. I think he was dying.
Excuse me. We have a lesson going on. What are some components? What are some things that a rainforest ecosystem has, and how do they interact?
Insects.
Okay, they have insects. Yes, what kind of animals would possibly be in a rainforest? Birds, snakes,
Frogs.
frogs, because it's a wet climate. A rainforest is a wet, humid climate. All right. What kind of plants would it have? It's called a rainforest.
Trees.
It's going to have a lot of trees.
Algae a plant.
Okay.
Have trees, algae, and algae.
Yes. So
Algae.
Rainforest ecosystem contains a lot of plants. Plants provide food and homes for other animals like birds and butterflies. Birds build nests in plants. Bugs eat leaves of plants, and birds drink nectar from flowers. Some plants also make fruit, which animals eat. It says, why are rainforest ecosystems important? Why are rainforest ecosystems important?
It's fine. I gotta go to the back.
Okay, that's fine. It helps give us oxygen. Rainforest covers about 6% of the planet and are responsible for producing about 40% of the oxygen we breathe. Because remember, we take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. Plants and trees, they take in carbon dioxide and let out oxygen. So that's why they say they're one of the most leading producers of oxygen that we breathe. It says, what are some parts of a freshwater ecosystem? What are some parts of a freshwater ecosystem? Okay, there'll be algae in it. Jody? There'll be bacteria. Quickly. What other things are you going to find in what am I talking about when I talk about fresh water? Because you have seawater or ocean water. What's fresh water? Anybody that fishes should know this. What is a freshwater ecosystem?
It's basically clean water.
Not just clean water.
Salted and it doesn't have the same much
Right, so fresh water is things like, mute your microphone please. Fresh water is things like ponds and lakes. They're not salt water, so they have different types of creatures in it. They have different types of fish in it than a salt water ecosystem. So they're going to have Examples in the video included fish, crabs, shrimp, turtles, algae, plants, dead wood, and rocks. These are all part of a freshwater ecosystem. What are some examples of a good and bad way humans can impact a saltwater ecosystem?
A good way. Sometimes they hurt. They bring in too many fish. Sometimes.
All right, so if there's overfishing, then the fish could possibly go extinct, which would throw off the balance of the ecosystem. Sidonia, if you need to stand up, I don't mind at all. Just stand up in your area.
In the sea, and that would mess up something or something. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. What are some good things that the saltwater ecosystem provides us? It provides us with food. We eat fish, shrimp, tuna. It's all coming from saltwater ecosystem.
Piranhas eat other fish, I think.
Seaweed comes from saltwater ecosystem. Okay?
Piranhas eat other.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that right now.
I think.
Okay? Alright, so some humans positively impact a saltwater ecosystem by being careful not to overfish. Humans can negatively impact the saltwater ecosystem by allowing fertilizer from farms to flow into the ocean, which can lead to blooms of algae, or too much algae can kill fish.
There's a lot of that happens because of the way that some fish get trapped in it sometimes.
Right.
They have nowhere to go. They can't come up and get air and stuff like that.
Yeah, and there's certain bacteria that fish shouldn't eat.
And sometimes fish
And stuff coming from our ecosystem going into another ecosystem is not always good for that ecosystem. All right, how could animals and plants respond to seasonal changes in an ecosystem? How can they respond? So, what do birds do whenever it's cold? They migrate south. In the winter, many animals migrate to somewhere or hibernate or sleep for a long time to avoid cold of winter. Also, some trees lose their leaves to conserve resources in the winter. In the spring, plants bloom around the same time and the insects emerge to help pollinate the plant.
Miss Becker, I have a question.
Is it about this? Is it about this? Hold on. Is it about this?
If somehow in the summer it reaches 20 degrees for about a week, would the birds start migrating or something?
No, because they more migrate only because of long periods of weather change.
Migrating.
It takes longer for whenever they want to stop.
Yeah. And then it says, what are some components of a garden ecosystem and how do they interact? You got a question? Oh, we're not allowed to use the water fountains unless you bring a bottle. So I forgot to mention that earlier. All right. What are some components of a garden ecosystem? Yes, Alex.
Someone grows plants.
All right, someone grows plants.
Rather something like a mole comes and eats it, and then
Okay, a mole actually eats the nutrients out of the soil, which makes the plant die. Because if the plant doesn't have the nutrients from the soil, it can't grow. Because, like in our grass, sometimes during the summertime, you can see kind of tracks from where the soil has lost its nutrients because there is a mole underneath our grass because it's taking all the nutrients out of the soil.
There's also bacteria.
And there's bacteria taking the nutrients and bacteria out of the soil that helps the plant grow, which would make it not able to help feed other animals like ladybugs and stuff. Gardens, the things interact because the soil helps the plants grow, which then the plants grow help the birds and the bees and other insects, and then it helps to transfer a pollen from plants to help other plants survive, which provide shelter and nesting areas for animals like squirrels. Even small puddles in gardens are ecosystems. They contain algae, worms, and insects. So when a bee pollinates a plant and it makes honey, then we're able to have honey.
During like the winter time, like you know how like the grass changes colors because it's not having sun sometimes.
It doesn't have as much sun, yep, and the
It's
temperature.
raining a lot, but there's no sun to dry it up to get
Right.
it like that, so that's why it changes color.
And if the temperature is too low, then there's a possibility of freezing the plants. Well, plants can't survive where it's not warm. That's why they have, there's some plants that can't survive when it's not warm. All right, I am going to pass out a paper for you to do on ecosystems. It is a short passage. I'll show you in just a second. Let me get my image up. It is a short 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraph passage. Now, you can still use your run. You need to use your runs expectations for this. If you haven't heard what runs is, I'm about to explain it to you. Sidonia, you wait. Okay. Hold on one second, Charles. I'll tell you what you're going to do in just a minute. Let me tell them first. So, runs means you're going to read and underline the title of the text, and then you're going to make a prediction. Then you're going to put your stop dots. Stop dots are things that help chunk the information into smaller things, which we have the paragraph. Put your mask up, bud. Then you're going to underline the keywords and the questions, and then you'll go back and read the text. Okay? So, I'm going to pass this out. Now, those on the computer, I'm going to share a document with you on Google Classroom. You need to go to Google Classroom. I will share the document with you. You're going to type in your answer into the document, okay? Just give me a minute, and after I pass these out, I will send you yours. Make sure you put your name on it. When you're done with it, just hold on to it. Me too, bud. Too tired now? You'll be too tired to recess this afternoon. You take my time, I take yours. So things that were on your desk, when it's car cap and your passwords and stuff, you can give that to your parents. And then the passwords and stuff you need to take home. Y'all can put those in the trash can that's out there outside. The big trash can. The breakfast, the trash from breakfast, put it in the big trash cans outside. When you get the paper, you can go ahead and begin. It's not useful if you're not covering your nose as well. It's not protecting you if you're not covering your nose as well. Alright, let me. Alec, we're doing work in here. Alex, hush. Yes, Charles. Yes, Charles?
Oh, is this working?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I am sending you the paper in just a second. I'm gonna send it to you virtually. It's gonna be, you need to go on to Google Classroom. Now to sign into it, you're gonna use your Gmail thing. And you're just gonna click on the box and type your answer in. Yep. Just gonna click on the box and type the answer in. Wonderful. All right, it's been shared to you. All right. And when you're finished with that, if you just want to come back on at 9:25, we'll start math.